So first and foremost, the word is pronounced Lesotho. Lesotho and not Lesotho. Lesotho is like currently my favorite country. And I'm saying this because of so many reasons, right? It has been on my list for like God knows how long, and I finally got the opportunity to visit this year in May. And in fact, I'm completely wowed by this country. Now, I actually had plans of visiting Lesotho when I made my first visit to South Africa when the visa-free, arrangement was announced. But then I didn't get the opportunity to visit. But this time around, I had the chance to visit, and guys, you are going to be so wowed by my experiences. Okay, now I spent a little above 24 hours in this country, and the little time that I had, like, it was just worthwhile. Okay, now without wasting much time, let's dive into the tips about this country. Now, number one, Lesotho is a landlocked country. Okay, it's found within another country. Lesotho is located within southern Africa. It's somewhere along the southeast, close to Eswatini. So there are two countries inside South Africa. So it gives you an idea of how big South Africa is. And I keep saying South Africa is so big that you need multiple trips to actually visit and get to see some of the spots or some of the areas. So it's a landlocked country. It's the coldest country in Africa currently. Like, I visited in May and it had already started snowing, like in the mountains, and it's so freaking cold. And getting to know that it snows in a country in Africa like feels so good. Like, I don't have to worry myself to travel to Canada or like travel to like Finland to experience cold. You can actually experience cold right here in Africa, and you can do that in this country. So like, Lesotho is so beautiful. It's currently the highest country with regards to the height. Okay, so people of Lesotho are living as high as 1,000 meters above sea level. I quite remember we visited Maletunyani waterfalls, and we are about 8,000 feet above sea level. Like, it's the highest country in Africa. That's why it's called the kingdom in the sky. Another thing to note is their currency is Loti, and the plural is Maloti. Now, Maloti is quite subpar with the South African rand. So countries like Eswatini, Lesotho, Namibia, they are able to use rand, and it's accepted widely across the country. So if you visit South Africa, it's just easy to just have your rands. You can spend that currency in Lesotho. Now, because it snows in Lesotho, they actually have like winter games during winter. So between May and like August or July, there's this place called Afriski Mountain Resort where they have like skiing, and all those slides, snow slides, and all those things. And currently, Lesotho has the highest ski resort in sub-Saharan Africa. That's about 3,000 meters, a little above 3,000 meters above sea level. So if you decide to, practice your skiing lessons before you jump out to either the Canada or USA. I'm saying this for West Africans who love to travel. You can actually visit Lesotho and then learn how to ski. It's such a fun game. I actually wanted to do skiing, however, I had little time, and so I had to skip that. But next time I visit Lesotho, of course, I'm going to try skiing. So if you have visited Lesotho before, let me know in the comment section. How do you call someone from Lesotho? What languages do they speak? Someone from Lesotho is called a Mosotho, and a group of people from Lesotho are called Basotho. Now, the most common language spoken in Lesotho is Sesotho and English. Sesotho is a common South African language that is spoken across South Africa, Lesotho, and even Eswatini. So if you visit the country, we live within the locals, you kind of get a lot of Sesotho spoken across, this country. So it's a common language within South Africa, Eswatini, and Lesotho. So you can learn a few words like Dumelang, which means hello or good morning. Lesotho is a very small country, it has a lot of like very beautiful landscape, mostly highlands, very small homes, and it's so beautiful all year round. If you visit this country, you get to see the locals wearing very thick blankets made of wool. So it's more of like their national way of dressing. The locals kind of wear lots of thick blankets, head mufflers, thick boots, and then they go around. So this blanket is mostly native to this country. If you decide to import alcohol to this country, you need a permit. So take note of that. If you decide to come along with alcohol to the country, maybe through the borders or through the airports, you are required to have a permit. Now, I just got to know that Lesotho is the country in Africa with the highest suicide rates. I don't really know why. Maybe it's because it's a very quiet country, people hardly hear about it. So I think these are like the most important things to know about Lesotho. It's mostly cold throughout the year. So if you decide to visit from like May to like August, make sure to pack some warm clothing. Climate is changing so fast, and it will be in your best interest to know the weather conditions prior to your visit. Now let's talk about how to get to Lesotho. Now, how did I get to Lesotho? Now, for me, I think there are mostly two ways: to go by land or to go by air. If you decide to go by air, there are flights that go from Johannesburg to Maseru. Now, these flights are kind of limited because most people go by road from Johannesburg or Bloemfontein or Free State or Durban or Mpumalanga. Now, depending on where you are, you have to kind of figure out which is the best means of transportation. I'm talking with regards to travel time and the distance. So because we traveled from Johannesburg to Maseru, it was about a little above 4 hours. Yes, so if you decide to travel by road from wherever you are, there are buses. You can actually buy tickets. Intercape offers rides from wherever you are in South Africa to Lesotho. Now, if you want a very hassle-free option, I'm not saying go by road is actually hard. Going by road is actually very seamless. The roads are like 10 over 10. Now, when I did my road trip from Johannesburg to Maseru, even though it was more of like 5 hours journey, I didn't really feel tired. It was just smooth, and the scenery was just so amazing. So you could book flights from Johannesburg, and then Johannesburg takes you straight to Maseru. Now, one thing I realized in traveling within Southern Africa is everything has to go through Johannesburg because that's where the major, airport is. So if you're trying to even transit if you're flying to Cape Town or Durban, you always have to go through Johannesburg and catch a flight from the domestic terminal. So it's the same thing with Lesotho. You have to fly from Johannesburg to this country. How did I go about my road trip? So at the time I was in Johannesburg, it all happened quickly that we had to actually travel to Lesotho. We didn't really prepare per se, but then I kind of asked friends for what is the best route. And don't take this advice because it's quite illegal in quotes. We kind of hitchhike. So there's this Facebook group. I'm going to leave the link in the comments in the description. So people kind of join minivans, private vehicles from different parts of South Africa to Maseru. So you have to look out for the next available ride and then join it. So it's more of a shared ride. You all pay a fee, and then the ride takes you to Lesotho. Now, this is the best option with my experience because the number of stops is reduced right from where you are, right from Johannesburg, or if you're coming from any part of South Africa, the ride takes you straight to Maseru, and there's limited number of stops. Now, I'm saying this is good because if you decide to go by the coaches, Intercape, or other means of transport, or maybe the public taxis, there are so many stops. So a trip that is supposed to last for about 4 hours and a little more can last for about 12 hours. And you can imagine how that's going to be. So if you are deciding to cut your journey short, it's best to actually kind of opt for this hitchhike ride. And it's safe, it's affordable. So I think for me, the most convenient way is to go by road. Now, there are so many border entry points. You need to figure out which one is closest to you. If you decide to travel from Bloemfontein, if you decide to travel from Free State, if you decide to travel from Durban or in Mpumalanga, I think the journey is much more faster if you are away from Johannesburg. If you are Ghanaian, it's best to fly into South Africa from wherever you are, and then Lesotho is visa free. It's visa free currently, and then all you need is your passport and your yellow fever vaccination card. Now, when I go to the border, it it was just so seamless. I didn't even spend like 2 minutes. They just stamped my passport. In fact, the immigration officers were so happy to actually receive a Ghanaian traveler. People hardly visit this country, so anytime they see travelers coming, they are so excited. So I think you should visit Lesotho at least for once in your lifetime. Yeah. What are the best things to do in Lesotho? Now, in my case, because I spent a little above 24 hours, I didn't get to do so much. Now, when we are in Maseru, every Wednesday night, there's like a games night, some cozy activity happening in the Maseru Mall, and it happens at a place called Nada Lifestyle Center. So it's like a restaurant. People come there, grab drinks or food, and there's a game night. And there are games like that actually happen, and then the winner is given like tickets to visit like Afri-Ski Resort or like a very prominent landmark in the country. So when we visited there, we had like games, you had like good food. The atmosphere is so cozy, you get to meet people, get to make friends, and I think it's a spot you have to visit. The next thing is, if you have a lot of time, you should visit Afri-Ski Mountain Resort, especially during winter season. Okay, there's skiing, there are a lot of winter games, snowboarding you can actually try, and it's quite far from the city. So if you decide to stay for long, it will be in your best interest to actually visit Afri-Ski Mountain Resort, get to try this snow activities. The next thing is, of course, to visit one of the highest waterfalls in Africa, which is Malechunyane Waterfalls, which is in Semonkong. Semonkong is roughly like an hour and 30 minutes from, I think, roughly 2 hours from Maseru. So it's a very beautiful drive up the mountains. When we visited during May and we're driving up the mountains, kind of like experience snow. And guys, it was so beautiful, like seeing snow for the first time. Like, I was so excited. Like, I didn't imagine I'll find snow in Africa. Now I know it snows in some parts of Africa like Uganda, Morocco, Southern Africa, Namibia, Tunisia, Algeria, Libya, but I didn't expect to see snow for the first time, and the thought of it was just too exciting. So I just had to do it. So of course, visit Malechunyane Waterfalls. When you get there, the locals provide like horses. I think it's 30 rand per person. The ride takes you about instead of going by foot to the falls, it kind of leads you down there. Going by foot to the falls is about 30 minutes, and so I would advise you go by horse. It's such a beautiful scenic ride. Now, whilst you are going by horse, you kind of hear cattle feeding, and there's just this beautiful music coming from them. They kind of place like metallic objects on their heads, so that in case any of the cattle kind of ward off, they're able to locate them with the sound. And it's such a beautiful sound. I'm going to add it to the video. You should listen to it playing right now. Another place you should also visit is the Lesotho Cultural Village. Now, this is actually found within South Africa, somewhere along the Free State. It's actually like an hour away from Lesotho. I visited this place on my second visit when South Africa announced visa free, for Ghanaians. And I did like a cultural experience, and it tells you about the Basotho tribe. It tells about basically the life of a Sotho family, wives, children, the royal, the monarchy rule and all that. But make sure to look out for the horse riders. They ride horses with their thick blankets, and it's so beautiful to see. I didn't really spend a lot in Lesotho because I had like a very short time. Now, when it comes to budgeting tips or like costs, roughly if you have like 5,000 rand, it should take you from Southern Africa to Lesotho and back to South Africa. Now, I spent like 24 hours. Okay, it was a shared ride. You were about 3 in the car, and then we spent close to about 5,000 rand. We hired a driver who took us around, from Johannesburg. We're actually staying in Sandton, so we did from Sandton to Maseru, and then did another trip to Eswatini. I'm going to talk about my Eswatini adventures in another video. Look out for it. And then from Eswatini, we drove all the way from Eswatini to Johannesburg. Now, Eswatini to Johannesburg is like another 4-hour journey. So, these countries are not so far from South Africa. Not far from Johannesburg. So, depending on where you are, I think it's actually easier to travel from Durban, Mpumalanga, to any of these countries. So I think these are the best things you need to know from Lesotho. When it comes to connectivity, the moment you arrived in Lesotho, Maseru, we got a SIM card, and I think the internet was fast. We didn't really spend so much. We stayed at a self-catering cabin. It's called hillside cottage, and it's self-catering. There's a kitchen, there's a cottage. It's just so beautiful. You get to see the view of the mountain, and the people are so warm. Now, one thing I love about this country is the people are so welcoming. The people are so warm. They are so inviting. They are so happy to see fellow Africans visit their country. For some reason, it's just so quiet. People are so reserved. So there's no one particular reason why I'm gonna shame this country, because I didn't really get to stay for so long, but for the short time that I stayed, my experience was good. If you have any questions with regards to traveling to Lesotho, maybe how to get there, if you want extra information, I think just drop a comment and then we'll pick it up from there. If you enjoyed this video, kindly drop a like, comment, subscribe, share. I visited Lesotho with a Ghanaian passport and it was visa free. They didn't even check the yellow fever card vaccination. I'm telling you the truth. But then it will be best to have yellow fever card as part of your travel documents, just in case they ask. And so the border transition was the most easiest border transition ever. I just got to the border. Where are you from? From Ghana, and then boom, they stamped in, and that was it. So this is all about the coldest country in Africa. Thanks for watching.